Everyone. So I'm going to continue reading in Hobbit uh, today. This is part two of chapter 10, Warm Welcome. So here we go. So they sang a very, or very like that, only there was a great deal more of it, and there was much shouting as well as the music, harps and fiddles mixed up with it. Indeed, such excitement had not been known in the town in the memory of the oldest grandfather. The wood elves themselves began to wonder greatly and even to be afraid. They did not know, of course, how Thorin had escaped, and they began to think their king might have made a serious mistake. As for the master, he saw there was nothing else for it but to obey the general clamor for the moment, at any rate, and to pretend to believe that Thorin was what he said. So he gave up to him his own great chair and set Keely and Feely beside him in the places of honor. Even Bilbo was given a seat at the high table, and no explanation of where he came in, no songs had alluded to him, even in the obscurest way, was asked for it in the general bustle. Soon afterwards, the other elves were brought into the town amid scenes of astonishment and enthusiasm. They were all doctored and fed and housed and pampered in the most delightful and satisfactory fashion. A large house was given up to Thorin and his company. Boats and rowers were put in their service, and crowds sat outside and sang songs all day, or cheered if any dwarf showed so much as his nose. So some of the songs were old ones, but some of them were quite new and spoke confidently of the sudden death of the dragon and of cargoes of rich presents coming down the river to Lake-Towne. These were inspired largely by the master, and they did not particularly please the dwarves, but in the meantime they were well contented, and they quickly grew fat and strong again. Indeed, within a week they were quite recovered, fitting out in nice clothes of the proper color, with beards combed and trimmed and proud steps. Thorin looked and walked as if his kingdom had already regained and Smog chopped up into little bits. Then, as he had said, the dwarves' good feeling towards the little hobbit grew stronger every day, and there were no more groans and grumbles. They drank his health, and they patted him on the back, and they made a great fuss over him, which was just as well, for he was not feeling particularly cheerful. He had forgotten the look of the mountain, nor thought of the dragon, and he had besides a shocking cold. For 3 days he had sneezed and coughed, and he could not go out even after his speeches and banquets were limited to "Thank you very much." In the meanwhile, the wood elves had gone back up to the forest river with their cargoes, and there was a great excitement in the king's palace. I've never heard what happened to the chief of the guards and the butler. Nothing, of course, was ever said about the keys or the barrels while the dwarves stayed in Lake-Towne, and Bilbo was careful never to become invisible. Still, I dare say more was guessed than was known, though doubtless Mr. Baggins remained a bit of a mystery. In any case, the king knew now the dwarves' errand, or thought he did, and he said to himself, "Very well, we'll see. No treasure will come back through Mirkwood without my having something to say in the matter. But I expect they will all come to a bad end and serve them right." At any rate, he did not believe in dwarves fighting and killing dragons like Smog, said he strongly suspected attempted burglary or something like that, which shows he was a wise elf and wiser than the men of the town, though not quite right, as we shall see in the end. He sent out his spies about the shores of the lake and as far northward as the mountain as they would go, and waited. At the end of a fortnight, Thorin began to think of departure, while the enthusiasm still lasted in the town, and the time to get help, and there was time to get help. He would not do to let everything cool down with delay, so he spoke to the master and with his counselors, and said that soon he and his company must go on towards the mountain. Then, for the first time, the master was surprised and a little frightened, and he wondered if Thorin was at all really a descendant of the old kings. He had never thought that the dwarves would actually dare to approach Smog, but believed they were frauds who would sooner or later be discovered and be turned out. He was wrong. Thorin, of course, was really the grandson of the king under the mountain, and there was no knowing what a dwarf will not dare and do for revenge for the recovery of his own. But the master was not sorry at all to let them go. They were expensive to keep. And their arrival had turned things into a long holiday in which business was at a standstill. Let them go, bother Smog, and see how he welcomes them, he thought. Certainly. Oh, Thorin, Thrain, son of Thror's son, was what he said. You must claim your own. The hour is at hand, spoken of old. What help can we offer shall be yours. We trust to your gratitude when your kingdom is regained. So one day, although autumn was now getting far on, and winds were cold and the leaves were falling fast, 3 large boats left Lake-Towne, laden with rowers, dwarves, Mr. Baggins, and many provisions, horses, ponies, had been sent round circuitous paths to meet them at the appointed landing place. The master and his counselors bade them farewell from the great steps of the town hall that went down to the lake. People sang on the quays and out of the windows, and the white oars dipped and splashed, and off they went north to the lake, the last stage of their long journey. The only person thoroughly unhappy was Bilbo. And there ends chapter 10. I'll pick up next time with chapter 11, On the Doorstep. Hope you're enjoying The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien. See you next time.